I just want us to come out of this in one piece, and I believe the best way to do that is as a family, so.
We want the same thing, nephew.
Good. Good.
But there's one thing you need to know before we can make that happen. I approached Teddy, made a deal to buy my cocaine directly from him.
You went to the plug behind my back.
We told you we wanted to run our business our way.
I completely destroy my business in the process. 90% of what I move is through you.
We know that, but this country is big enough for all of us. And most of our business is coming from other cities anyway. St. Louis, Little Rock.
My expansion idea.
Which we make it happen.
We understand your position. And we agreed to give you one LA territory of your choice. Inglewood, Compton, whatever.
You do that for me.
We're trying to be reasonable.
And what if I say fuck your fucking reasons?
Let's talk about one customer is no customer. How to build a business clientele base the correct way. And this is going to be a really good video for business owners, aspiring business owners, to not make a mistake that a lot of business owners make, and they often don't realize it until they're fully into their business, and then they can have a difficulty positioning or pivoting out of this particular bad mistake that they made. So here's the problem. You have one customer, you only have one customer, or your one customer is over 40% of your business revenue. A scenario where you're in business and you only have one customer. You're doing a one-to-one business situation. Or you have one customer, and that one customer in your business is over 40% of your business revenue. And you may think that's a good thing because in your mind, you may say, hey, I got this one customer and they're doing so much business with you. But we're going to kind of show you what are some of the downfalls of being in that situation. It may look good on paper. However, from a business standpoint, from a revenue standpoint, it may not be the best situation for you to be in. Now, here's a solution. Go find more than one customer so you are not vulnerable. That's the easiest solution to the problem. When you're in that situation, you need to go find more than one customer so you're not vulnerable. And not just more than one customer, but you need more than one customer to be driving the majority of revenue into your particular business. Now, here's a snowfall example from the video and from the audio that we saw earlier. The uncle and aunt were around 90% of his wholesale business, right? Now they want different terms. His business is now under risk. The lead character of Snowfall was essentially what we would call a wholesaler. He was able to get large amounts of this particular product, and then he was able to create distribution relationships with different people to help him sell that product. He needs distributors to take on the responsibility of selling the product because he's a wholesaler. If there's nobody that wants to sell the product from him, then he'll just be sitting on a large amount of product and he'll be sitting on a large quantity because he's a wholesaler. What he did was he brought his uncle and aunt into his particular business and allowed them to become what we would call super distributors. The problem is that they had such a disproportionate amount of his business as distributors. When they decided they want different terms, it put his business under risk. That's not their fault, that's his fault. Because why? He built the business that way. Okay? That's the first thing you got to understand. It's not their fault, it's his fault. He built the business that way. Therefore, when it turned bad on him, the only person he can look at is himself, but that was because of his lack of experience in business. He didn't know things could eventually go that way. Now, what we call this is high customer concentration in business. It means that the majority of revenue of a business is concentrated with one customer. And often that makes that particular business very vulnerable because why? That one customer could wake up tomorrow and decide, I want different terms. That one customer could wake up tomorrow and decide they no longer want to do business with you. And then therefore, when you have that high customer concentration, your business is very vulnerable to what that one customer wants to do. And you don't want to be in that situation as a business. What you want to do is diversify your client base or your customer base. We talked about when the large revenue customer leaves, the business revenue is negatively impacted by a disproportionate percentage. This is why you don't want to do that. It looks good on paper. It may sound good. It may make you feel good that this one person is doing this much business with you. The challenge is if that one person decides tomorrow to not do that level or quantity of business with you, there's going to be a large negative impact. Now you got to scramble to try to figure out where that other business is going to come from. So you look at the guy in the particular show. I didn't watch the show. I'm not a really big fan of the show, but I'm just using this as an example. If he loses somebody that's doing 90% of his business, he now has to scramble to do what? To try to figure out where he's going to pick up that other 90% from. That's too much of his business exposed just to that one group. He should have diversified out of that situation a long time ago. You may start there, but you very quickly got to get yourself out of that situation. Now, here's an example from real life, right? Not just TV shows. Rivian IPO. Rivian, when they IPO'd, they did not have a real customer market, or what we call a consumer market. Why? Because they weren't able to manufacture enough vehicles to sell to anybody. Rivian IPO'd with not a real full-scale manufacturing capability. I think they were doing targets of maybe 50,000 for the year. It's really not a lot of vehicles. They had an order from Amazon for 100K vehicles by 2030. Now, a lot of people latched on to the particular Amazon order. And they say, well, Rivian has a really good base because they have an Amazon order. However, that's only 100K vehicles by 2030. I think Rivian IPO maybe in 2021. That's almost a decade. So over 10 years, they really only have an order for 100K vehicles. That's really not a lot of vehicles. And it's because Rivian IPO, they did not really build out a consumer market before they IPO'd. They didn't have B2B relationships with companies like Amazon or maybe United States Postal Service or even maybe the police department. And then therefore, people were jumping on the Amazon deal. But the problem was that was high customer concentration, which put Rivian at a lot of risk and also put Rivian investors at a lot of risk. Because what happens if news comes out that Amazon has decided to pull out of the 100K deal and Rivian is maybe 20,000 vehicles in, which means that what? There's 80,000 vehicles they're not going to produce. They're not going to be able to capture that revenue. What is the terms of the deal? Is Amazon going to pay them the 100K up front and then they can just produce them over time? Or is Amazon saying, hey, we'll buy, let's say, 15,000 vehicles per year over these next 7 to 8 years to fill up the 100K. So that means they only can capture that revenue so much per year. And without understanding the terms of the deal really may not be as big as we think it is based on the terms. However, investors are very much at risk because why? Rivian had a high customer concentration with one organization, and they did not really have a consumer base that showed that they really was demanding Rivian vehicles. Now, when you start your business, you can have one customer. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to start somewhere, right? Start with one. That's the basic thing. Get one person to buy from you. However, you need to use the one customer to get the second and third and the fourth. This is why I tell people all the time, when you're dealing with a startup business, when you're dealing with a small business and you have a good relationship with them, I really want to encourage people to give them testimonials because they need those testimonials to get that second, third, fourth, and fifth customer. Often people will talk about what they don't like about the business, but they won't talk about what they did like about the business. And when we're dealing with businesses that are in the startup stage, they're still kind of like I call a micro business, which means they're doing under $10 million a year in business. They need those customer testimonials to continue to build their business to get their other customers, because a lot of times word of mouth can be very important. It shouldn't be their whole marketing campaign, but they need that. And then as the business owner, you use the first customer to get the second. You use the second to get the third, use that to get the fourth, and you keep going on and on and on because you have to diversify your client base. You don't want all your business coming from one person because they may decide tomorrow they no longer want to do business with you. We're seeing that Chegg reported that what? They're losing their customers to ChatGPT. These things happen in business. One day as a business owner, you're going to wake up and your customers are no longer wanting to do business with you. And you're going to have to either go in a different direction or you're going to have to shut down the business. So this is why you don't want everything situated under one customer. You will eventually lose your first customer. Who will replace that lost revenue? People are going to age out of your business They're going to be in a different position in their life. Their tastes are going to change. All of these things are going to happen to people that are in your customer base. What mechanisms do you have in place to replace the lost revenue from losing customers? So that's going to be it. We're going to wrap. One customer is no customer. How to build a business clientele base the correct way. But I want to really encourage you. These are fundamental principles of building a business. They're not I exited at $150 million last year. It's not about that. If you don't get these fundamental things right, you can make $150 million in 1 year and the next year make zero because $150 million was coming from one customer. As opposed to making $150 million from 10 different customers. So if you lose one, it's not a big hit to your revenue. And that's what I want you to understand. Hope you got some value from it. David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'll talk to you later.